So, everyone, you're very welcome. My name is Katie O'Neill, and I have the privilege of working in the UCD College of Engineering and Architecture. I may have been on email with a number of you over the past few weeks, and if it wasn't me, I'm sure you've had an email, at least from Cara or my other colleague, Neve. The reason we're putting on today's session is just to give you the opportunity to ask the various questions to the key academics today. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over, I think it's Luke first, if I'm correct, and everyone's going to introduce themselves. And also just to say, we will be taking questions throughout the session. So if you could pop them in the Q&A, that would be wonderful. And we'll get to them towards the end of the session. So over to you, Luke. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Hi, everyone, and welcome. So as Katie said, I'm Dr. Luke Kelleher. I'm the Head of Environmental Policy here at UCD, and I'm delighted to open today's session and to give you a brief overview of what to expect from the webinar. Before joining UCD in 2016, I worked for the UK Department for Transport in London, and that early experience in applied policy work has been invaluable in shaping how I both approach my teaching and research in UCD's Environmental Policy group. So like all our faculty, my current research is grounded in practical policy challenges. I work closely with several government departments here in Ireland, including Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, Department of Agriculture, particularly on issues such as energy poverty, transport poverty, and those central to environmental justice and policy design. So just in addition to being the head of environmental policy in Dublin, I also serve as program director at UCD's Chang'an Dublin International College of Transportation, based in Jian, China, where I lecture and coordinate international research collaborations. So I look forward to meeting many of you in Dublin next semester, where I'll be teaching a new module on the course, Evidence-Based Decisions and Communications. And that module will draw directly on my experience translating research into practice and is designed to equip you students with the skills to critically evaluate evidence and influence environmental policy effectively. So now I'll just turn to the agenda. So first you'll hear from my colleague, Dr. Cara Gustenberg, our current program director. Cara will briefly outline environmental policy, UCD's leadership in this space, and what makes our MSc program unique. Then Hannah Gould, a former Environmental Policy Master's graduate, will share her personal journey, what she gained from the programme and how it's helped shape her professional development. After that, he'll be joined by Dr. Tenzay Melez, one of our key faculty members. And then finally, we'll open up the floor to your questions. So please do stay with us for the questions and answers. So I'll hand over to you, Cara.
Thanks, Luke. And thanks, hello to everyone who's joining today from all over the world. We hope we get to see all of your faces in September. So as Luke said, I am the current program director for the MSc, but we change leadership every 3 to 5 years. So by the time you start in September, Dr. Tenzay Melez will be the program director for the MSc, and I will be the head of the environmental policy program. So I'll still be working with you very closely in that capacity too. So I'm charged with setting the scene and talking to you about what we do in the Masters in Environmental Policy here in UCD. And hopefully when you were applying, of course, you all looked into what environmental policy is. So I don't need to go into detail, but the reason I put up this definition is just to point out that, historically we would have thought that our graduates would tend to go into government jobs or maybe NGOs working in environmental policy, but more and more we're seeing our graduates going into jobs in the corporate sector. So it's really important to realize that environmental policy is policies within any organization. And of course, we're finding now that businesses, pretty much every business in the world, has corporate and social responsibility policies or sustainability policies that also are really valuable for jobs for graduates. And another important thing to point out, of course, we hear mostly about climate policy in the media, but our graduates, we're trying to skill them to be able to deal with all of the ecological crises that we're dealing with, and that includes natural resource management, more and more around waste management, circular economy, bioeconomy, which Dr. Kelleher and Hannah Gould are very involved in. And of course, there's a growing demand for knowledge around biodiversity and natural resources, ecosystem management, and things like that. So it is a very broad set of challenges that we are dealing with in the environmental policy program. And of course, being a member state of the EU here in Ireland, we're really privileged, I think, to get to be part of what is the most ambitious environmental policy area in the world, I think, particularly with the European Green Deal, which is really has ambitious climate targets for Europe, but also ambitious decoupling of economic growth with resource use, so that moving to a circular economy and just transition principles. So of course, all of this feeds into Ireland's national policy and national legislation. And so in the last 10 years in particular, we have seen an unprecedented amount of environmental policy here in Ireland, which means that there is far more work in environmental policy than there are people trained to do it, which is a good opportunity for our graduates. And at UCD, we're particularly proud that we essentially have become the adjudicators of Ireland's environmental policy progress. So we lead the annual environmental report card of government, which is commissioned by Friends of the Earth Ireland. And that is a massive project. Usually it's chaired by myself, but it involves 3 or 4 of our MSc students every summer as interns. And we grade the government in every element of environmental policy. This attracts huge media attention. So every year, this reaches a readership of over 3.2 million people in Ireland, along with radio interviews and TV interviews. So we're really proud that we are essentially the adjudicators of environmental policy in Ireland and the leaders in this. And that's just one example of the kind of work we do. But of course, my colleagues are doing other similar projects. So with that in mind, everyone in our faculty is quite in demand, both nationally and internationally. So we are often in the media, at the UN climate conferences, speaking in front of government committees and at big international conferences. So it's an exciting place to work and to learn. So what do we want from you when you're here working with us? Well, we really like to focus on knowledge, skills, and tools. So we try and develop a scientific literacy. I come from an environmental science background. A lot of our students do have science backgrounds, but of course we want to get everyone up to the same level of scientific literacy in terms of the environmental processes and changes that we see. We also try and equip you with the kind of legal knowledge, the policy knowledge, and understanding social movements, which are so important for driving good environmental policy. Then we focus on skills, and those include both the kind of quantitative and qualitative methods that Dr. Kelleher teaches in his module, but also teamwork, problem solving, and those softer skills around communications. And also I'm a certified project manager, so very passionate about project management theory and bringing in that kind of strategy and leadership, which is really important for the corporate sector in particular. And then finally, our students love to have as many tools in their tool belt as they can. So we give them skills in GIS, which is a really important one, environmental impact assessment, risk management, public participation. And those tools are constantly evolving as we try and meet the demands of the employment sector in this area. So this is an example of the academic year that you would be starting in. It's slightly different than what you've seen on the website. As Dr. Kelleher mentioned, we've brought in, rebranded some of our modules and brought in some new modules. So because Dr. Tensei Miles has both a background in environmental and behavioral economics, we get to bring in that behavioral science now, which is really valuable for driving transition. Our European environmental policy class is really popular, and it includes an optional field trip to Brussels to see the Parliament and meet MEPs, which the students absolutely love. Dr. Kelleher mentioned the evidence-based decisions and communication, which really brings in those kind of quantitative and qualitative research skills and communication skills. Then in trimester 2, I run the Sustainability Lab, which is a big 12-week project, and the project varies every year. So this year, the students were working on developing a biodiversity strategy for the campus. They were really passionate about wanting to make their mark on the campus, and they were out traipsing around evaluating biodiversity and interviewing students and faculty about what UCD could do more of in terms of improving our biodiversity on our beautiful and very spacious campus. But also that project changes every year. So next year we'll be working with the Climate Change Advisory Council and working on developing climate policy in Ireland. But it's a really fun group project that the students learn a lot from, and definitely something they bring to employers in terms of a real world experience in environmental policy design. Professor Clinch is now bringing in a new module on sustainable corporate strategy, so really trying to appeal to the needs of businesses now in environmental policy. And then we round everything out with a module in environmental policy and regulation, which really tries to get the experience of environmental impact assessment, environmental law, and other areas to kind of round out the education. And finally, our students either choose to do an internship or a research project, so they either go out into industry to do their internship, or they may work with some of the faculty members on a summer research project for 12 weeks, or they may opt to do a thesis, particularly if they want to go on to do a PhD. But more and more, our students are choosing internships or research projects. So we don't just teach, we also have lots of experiences over the year, and I couldn't even fit in all of them. But you can look at our LinkedIn page if you want to see the kind of things that students do over the year, including field trips. Some of the photos there are showing field trips. Some of the students have gone to the UN climate conferences. We always bring in our alumni every year to do a careers event where lots of our alumni come back and talk to students about how to find jobs or helping them get jobs. It's a really lovely careers event that we do every year. And finally, some of our students have won awards for the projects that they've done in our modules and have featured in media talking about those projects. So there's lots going on throughout the year. These are some of the examples of the organizations that students go intern with. So they will usually find the internship themselves, but if we have any contacts, we usually try and make introductions. So it's NGOs, the Big Four accountancies, environmental consultancies, but we are very open, and students may go do internships back in their home countries or here in Ireland, depending on their needs, as long as there's an environmental policy focus to the internship. The students who decide to work with researchers over the summer, we have a huge list of areas that we are working on for active research projects. These are some of them. And so obviously that's a really nice opportunity to get to know the students better and work more closely with them over the summer on an area that's of mutual interest to both of us. So what do they do after they graduate? Well, we're running out of room for all the organizations that they go work for. There's a list there that you can look through, and a wide variety of positions from consultants to policy analysts, but really diverse. And all of the graduates have said that the skills they learn in our program really apply to a wide area. So there's a lot of opportunities for them. Those people who want to stay in Ireland, as I said before, there's more work in environmental policy than there are people to do it, and particularly in the areas of renewable energy, where Ireland is trying to move to a fully fossil fuel-free energy system. We're at about 40% now, but we want to get to nearly 100%. So there's a lot of opportunity in that sector in particular. With circular economy, we are really trying to move from a linear economy to a circular economy right now. We have a deposit and return scheme now, finally, on plastic and aluminum bottles. As Hannah might mention, there's a lot of interest in the bioeconomy, so a lot of opportunity in Ireland, particularly because we are such an agricultural society. And finally, this year, the EU passed the really exciting nature restoration law, which has really ambitious targets for each member state. And that is driving a lot of interest and more jobs in the area of nature restoration in Ireland. So 3 really key areas for those who do want to stay in Ireland after they graduate. So I'll just wrap up with this slide on why our program is particularly unique. I mean, we are in a university which is highly ranked internationally, both in terms of academics and in terms of sustainability. But also our particular program is unique, not only because it's ranked in the top 150 worldwide in this subject, but also we've been in existence for now over 40 years, actually. Most environmental programs or sustainability programs that you'll look at have only been in existence for maybe 10 years or less. And for us, the advantage of that is not only the experience that we bring from such a long legacy of work in this area, but also because we have over 30 years of connections with graduates and alumni. So that means really good opportunities in terms of networking and jobs for our current students, which most environmental programs don't have. And then finally, I would say that you will find many sustainability programs will focus on all the problems, and there are many environmental problems out there for you to learn about, but we really take a solutions focus. So we want to create the problem solvers of environmental policy and environmental issues. And that is really the focus of all of our modules. So that I like that positive approach myself, and I think students do too. So with that, I will hand it over to Hannah Gould to talk about her experiences as a student and a graduate of our MSc program.
Thanks, Cara. Hi, everyone. It's lovely to join you this afternoon, and I'm very happy to be the voice of a previous graduate on the MSc in Environmental Policy at UCD. So I might just follow on there from what Cara said about a real draw for me for the program was that it was very solutions focused. So in my cohort, I did the MSc a few years ago now, and in my cohort there were a mix of students, some who had just finished their undergraduates, others who had maybe worked for a little and then rejoined. I was in the latter group. So I did my undergraduate at the University of Edinburgh, and then I worked as a journalist for many years covering environmental sustainability problems. Journalism obviously has a very important place in raising awareness of climate change. But I got to the point where I thought, I'm writing so much about the problems and I'd quite like to understand more about the solutions and maybe how I can affect those solutions. So that's what attracted me to the Environmental Policy MSc at UCD. As Cara has talked you through, there is a really diverse set of modules that cover kind of theory and practical skills that you can apply in the real world. And so that is I think that's a really strong point of this MSc at UCD. And in terms of the teaching and the learning, from my experience, the staff were very approachable, as Cara mentioned as well. The staff are very actively involved in current research. And so that means that you're learning and the outputs that you're producing, they kind of feel very current and relevant. In my experience, I actually chose to do the research project or thesis in the trimester 3. At the time, Brexit was quite a big thing. So my focus of my thesis was actually on Brexit, and I was able to work very closely with one of the professors who ran the EU environmental policy course at the time. And that project was a big success. And actually, following my MSc, that professor got approached with other opportunities, which he invited me to join on to. So I suppose, yeah, that active research approach that the teaching has really benefits your learning as well. And besides obviously all the classroom skills that you'll gain from the modules, from my experience, there was a lot of teamwork. We were really encouraged to practice our presentation skills and public speaking, and I know that can be quite daunting at the beginning, but it really was so beneficial going forward, especially if you're going to be working in any role really that involves public speaking and communications, which I suppose environmental policy does. And then just in terms of what drew me to UCD, it's a very large campus. I remember when I was researching UCD, I realized that the student body was kind of bigger than the size of the hometown. My hometown where I'm from, a very small town in Scotland. So it's big, but with that comes, there's so many societies, clubs, opportunities to meet new people, obviously outside of the MSc as well. So I would encourage you, if you are joining, to just have a look at the UCD Society's webpage, because there are lots of opportunities there to meet new people, find new interests, and just make the most of your time here, I suppose. And then in terms of my advice for you, outside of the module for when you are undertaking this MSc, there are a lot of opportunities that UCD offer in terms of workshops for skills development. So UCD Library run quite a lot of research skills workshops that are free. The Skills Careers consultancy also provides one-on-one career advice where they might help you with your career planning or look over your CV or produce or do mock interviews. So these are all things that you can do outside of the MSc itself, which is great, but just making the most of all the other opportunities that UCD can provide you with. So I think that's it for me. And if you do have, obviously, I know we're doing Q&A at the end there, which Katie will kindly facilitate. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. And thank you for having me.
Thanks, Hannah. It's great to get your perspective and great to be able to still draw on that even well after you finished your master's. So my email address is at the bottom if you guys have questions later after the Q&A. But with that, I'm going to hand over very briefly to Dr. Tensei Milas just to talk about what you might expect in September when he takes over as program director. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. and my name is Tensai Nellis. I am an assistant professor of environmental economics and policy. And also in terms of my background, I'm an economics, my background is economics by training. And also I do research in terms of building energy efficiency, performance, electricity market, prices, and also environmental valuation and the uptake of renewable energy technology, whether it's heat pump, solar PV, EV. And then I also do some behavioral economics, where the decision varies under hypothetical task or incentivized task. And saying that, and then I would like to congratulate all of you for joining this program. And we are very excited to have you with us. And then I'll take over as a program director for the master's program in environmental policy from Dr. Kara. And yeah, so starting this July. And so in terms of orientation, we will have our official orientation will be in September the 9th at 10 o'clock Dublin time. So what we will do on that day is we'll begin with an introduction of the program. You will meet the faculty, staff members, and then we'll give you what you are expected in that year ahead. After that, we will have a lunch together, and then after the lunch, you will head straight into the first lecture in the afternoon. And then by the evening, we will wrap up the day with a few drinks around, starting around 5:30 in the nearby pub. And then that will give you an opportunity to meet your fellow student and then also the faculty members. And yeah, so that's all in terms of the orientation I would like to say, but I will send you full detail of schedules for that day around mid-August. And yeah, so and then you need to keep an eye on your email. I'll send you the full detail just to give you some heads up. And yeah, so have a great summer, and we look you forward to seeing you in September. So that's it. Yeah, thanks. Amelia.
Thanks, Tensei. So Katie, will we hand back to you for questions?
Please, yeah. So firstly, there was a number of future students who emailed me to say they couldn't make the time today, but were aware it was going to be recorded. So they sent in some questions that they could review upon when I send the recording. Just to pick up before I get into the questions on something Tensei said there, firstly, it sounds like you've got an amazing first day planned for all the students, which is super, but also just to let them all know, they will also be invited to a college orientation, which will take place on the 4th of September, where you'll meet the principal of the college. You'll get to have lunch and socialize with other students who are coming into some other of our Talk graduate programs. But you don't need to worry about remembering all these times and dates, because you will receive emails in late August. And in terms of module registration, because that's a question we get quite a bit, that does not happen until towards the end of August. And again, everything is sent out on your email. So you will be prompted. I would just encourage you, when your UCD Connect email is active, that's the place that you keep an eye on. So I'm going to go to the questions that have been sent in, but if anyone has further questions, please pop them into the Q&A and we'll get to those as well. I suppose this is probably a question for yourself, Cara. Someone asking, what's the typical class size? They did mention how is the program structured in terms of lectures, tutorials, and group work, but that was kind of covered in the presentation, but maybe more around the class size then.
Yeah, so our core modules, our MSc program in environmental policy would typically have somewhere between 15 to 20 students. So it's a relatively small group. We like that because then we can really get to know people and give people a lot of individual attention, which I think is super important at the MSc level. And then we do invite other MSc programs into some of our modules, not all of them. So you could find a module with maybe up to 30 or 40 students, but that the most is usually around 30. So still relatively small, even if we invite another MSc program into one of the modules. And then in terms of structure, we're very aware that people are living all over Dublin and some people have long commutes. So we don't expect people to come in every single day. We try and timetable the trimester so that we expect people to come in about 3 days a week. So that, that kind of minimizes the commuting time. And then when you're in, you can really enjoy your time. And we tend to do 2-hour modules. So You might have up to 2 modules in a day, so no more than kind of 4 hours of actual class time. And that gives the students a lot of time to do group projects outside of class time and have time to reflect and study. And, you know, this is really important for becoming a professional policymaker, is that you develop your own thinking in these ideas.
That's brilliant. I have someone here asking us, are there many funding opportunities for research and projects in this program?
Yeah, so during the academic terms, the autumn and spring terms, we don't tend to hire MSc students because they really need to focus on their modules. So we do have a part-time program if people want to work in addition to doing the MSc program, but if you're full-time, like the demand for projects and assignments is pretty full on. But in the summer, there are opportunities. Some of us have funded research projects where we've budgeted in for a research assistant, and so we do sometimes hire students ourselves, or some of the internships they take will be paid internships. Some of them are unpaid, so it just depends.
Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps this is a question for Hannah. Someone is just wondering, how did you find the workload in your master's compared to your undergraduate studies, and was it a big step up?
Hi, that's a really good question. I suppose following on from what Cara said again, it is a demanding course. It's an MSc, so you kind of expect that. So it was a big step up from the undergrad, but at the same time, I also know people who are able, because I know obviously the cost of living it can be a challenge. So I do know people who are able to kind of work you know, a part-time job or a few days a week to be able to make an income as well. So I suppose it's just time management, but there is a big jump up and lots of preparation, but you do have enough awareness of your deadlines to be able to manage your time properly. But yeah, it requires you to work. I'll say that.
It sounds
I
like,
could
go
briefly
ahead,
comment
Luke.
on that. Yes. So, I mean, normally the course we have per semester is like 3, right? So compared to the other student, we have also other student joining some of the modules. Some of them, they have 6 modules per semester. So I would say it's fair balance, but still you have some group work, individual assignment, you have to write a report, and then final exam. So just, it's a balance, it's a matter of how you manage your time, but I would say it's fair balance, like 3 per semester, and where other students in engineering, economics, they may have 6 modules per semester. Yeah.
I might just come in there, Katie, as well, just to say that there's a real mix among the modules, and we also place a strong emphasis on interactive and problem-based learning as well in some of the modules. So several modules will include group work, but there's a real structure. The structure of the course supports both individual academic development and group work and team-based real-world policy learning. So that's something that we've implemented even more so with these new modules that we're introducing this year.
Brilliant, thank you. And probably a question for the academics now. How does this program adapt to the trends and the changes, and I suppose keep up to date with the skill sets that are going to be required by the industry?
Yeah, I can take that one. So because we work so closely with our alumni, we are in constant contact with them about the demands of employers. And that is why we've brought in things recently like sustainable corporate strategy, because more and more we were seeing from our graduates that they weren't going into government or NGOs, they were going into corporate sector. And so yeah, we are constantly trying to adapt and respond to that. And I think we're doing a really good job. And the feedback we've gotten from alumni about our new program changes is that they're really excited, and they think that graduates will be even more appealing to employers going forward because they have these new modules in their transcripts.
Yeah, I'll just add there, Katie, that so we try and keep it, as Cara was saying, we keep the program responsive, agile by reviewing, updating module content regularly. So as Cara said in the presentation, we've done that again this year. And it's something we'll do in continuing years. So, for example, we've recently integrated new content on things like the just transition, climate communications, and that's in response to what are sort of emerging policy priorities. So we're keeping it as responsive as possible.
That sounds really good. In terms of, I know you mentioned in your presentation, I think it was Cara, you talked about, you know, the research and the projects, and also I think you mentioned the opportunity of internship in either or. Someone's just asking if they have their own kind of idea for a research topic. Is that a possibility?
Certainly that would maybe make a good thesis, and that's typically a thesis would be something that
Okay.
the student was really excited about, but the thesis is graded, so it puts a little bit more pressure on the student than the internship research module, which is just a pass-fail module. So that's just something to be mindful of that can sometimes put students off of doing the thesis.
But I guess they can get the relevant guidance when they're on the course then.
Yeah, and they do
Yeah.
get supervision from a researcher, from an academic on as they progress the thesis. Luke, do you want to say something more about that?
Yeah, I'd come in there as well, Kitty, just particularly in my modules, which are the research-based, skills modules.
Mm,
I have students coming with ideas, and over the course of the 12-week program or 12-week module, we look at their idea at the start, and then with the skills that they learn and methodologies they learn over the course of the module, it leads to maybe a different approach to the project at the end, and then we can help them identify a potential supervisor within either UCD environmental policy or elsewhere if it's something that maybe they want to take on after they graduate.
The other thing to
Okay.
say, Katie, is we have sometimes encouraged, for example, we have a student right now who's very passionate about the fast fashion industry. And right away when she started, she said this was her passion, what she wanted to work on. So over the year, we were cultivating relationships for her with NGOs that were working in that area so that she could go and do her internship in that area. So I think if we know that a student has a particular area that they want to go into, we do put a lot of thought into making sure that there might be opportunities for them, maybe not to do it as a thesis, but to do it as an internship.
Yeah.
brilliant. So I think the key message here is that it's worth the student having a conversation with their academics. And I think what's brilliant for the students is to know that you guys have those connections that you could possibly cultivate and make those links between the student and industry, which is wonderful to hear.
Maybe just to say, it would be also good. I would advise the students to read each of the staff of their own UCD profiles, and they can read about their research interests or publications as well. So that might, spring an interest, or maybe they can identify similar research interests to some of the academic staff, and maybe arrange a meeting early in September to discuss that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea as well. Someone here who's looking to get a jump start, which we always like to see. They're just saying, go ahead, Tensei.
I just want to add a few things on that one also, like in terms of the modules. Like, I mean, we have like modules. The modules are structured in a way that in the very beginning you will have the theoretical concept, some theories, framework, you will understand that one, and then you will have hand-in exercise, could be group assignment or individual assignment, that will be get into the practical, empirical aspects. And then in terms of the research, also you will have a module with Dr. Luke, like in terms of the research communication. If you are interested, if you have some research question in top of your head, and then you will have the training. How can you frame your research question? How could you write? And then at the end, we have this thesis and then the internship option. So we will help you throughout the years. So it's like what you're interested in, and we'll shape that one in a way that's useful for you all. And then I think, Hannah, you would also want to reflect on that one, or?
Pardon?
Do you want to reflect on terms of the research and the internship, maybe?
Yeah, I can do. So as I mentioned, I did I suppose a thesis, and Katie, if the person who submitted the question wants to talk, I'm happy to, because I had my own idea. And similar to the advice Luke was giving, I kind of had my idea and then kind of researched the staff at UCD to find out which was most aligned with my interest. And it worked really well. And then I think I mentioned from that interest, it led to other opportunities with that member of staff. So yeah.
That's brilliant to hear.
Helps.
So it's about having conversations and not being shy and making sure you make the connection. So use the resources that are available online in terms of the profiles of our academic staff, but also, and it's always commented on to me by our students who come in who haven't done their bachelor's here. They can never believe how accessible our academics are. You can talk to them, you can make appointments with them, you can grab them at the end of class. So don't be shy. As I mentioned earlier, I have someone who's very keen, and they have a couple of months off before they start the master's with us in September. So they're just wondering, what advice could you give to them? How could they best prepare for this master's? Or is it a case of just enjoy your time off because you're about to do a lot of study? Or is there any advice you can give them, either one of our academics or from a student perspective? I'm okay, whichever.
Yeah, I've gotten a few emails on this topic actually. So do enjoy your summer because you will be working hard come August. Of course, you could be maybe doing some reading and trying to figure out what areas of environmental policy you might be most interested in. As Tensei mentioned, you do have an opportunity to incorporate those interests into your assignments. So, we're pretty flexible on the topics students pursue for their assignments. And the other thing, just as a small thing that I'll throw out, is we do have over the summer a journal club in climate communications that we're running online every Thursday from 11 to 12 Irish time. And so anyone is welcome to join that journal club. And all of us are reading different papers about climate communication for an EPA-funded research project that I'm running. And we're learning from each other about different ways to communicate climate change, but that applies to any kind of environmental policy. So I know Hannah's been part of it, and we've about 12 or 15 students and faculty jumping in every week. So if people want to do something over the summer and get to know the faculty a bit better, feel free to email me and I can send you the registration link to get involved in that.
That's absolutely brilliant. I might just move on to our last question, conscious of everyone's time. And also, sorry, Cara said you can email her in relation to joining that group every Thursday, and her email address is in there in the chat for you. Someone's just asking, they've come from a law background and they're wondering if the science related modules are beginner friendly. So I think they may be a little bit concerned that without a strong science background, will they find it challenging to keep up?
Hannah, do you want to say something? And then I can jump in there if you want.
I can. If it's any comfort, I'm not a scientist. There were scientists in my cohort, so a few kind of marine biologists, but I am definitely a social scientist more than a scientist, and everything was very accessible. I think actually more and more of the data and information you need on climate change is accessible because it needs to be.
Yeah.
So yeah. So
Yeah.
I would offer words of assurance to that student.
We have a real mix. Like we will always have some people with science backgrounds, but I think there's usually more social science people in the cohorts typically. So we just assume that everyone's starting from the same place and we bring everyone up together. And I am really, really passionate about climate communication in particular. So I always do like an introduction to climate science, and I am trained as a scientist. So I try and explain all of that to people, but we don't make any assumptions that people have any scientific literacy. So you'll be absolutely fine because we will get you up to speed on all of those issues.
It was something I was frightened of as well, but I just want to ensure them it was okay.
I think that's going to be very reassuring for our attendees. So go ahead.
Can I just echo that point that you raised, that all the academic staff are very approachable, and everybody's there to help. So everybody starts at, we teach every module from the beginning with a logical structure, but the lecturers and the assistant professors, associate professors are all there to help and assist you in any way they can throughout the academic year.
Yeah, we get the same comment too about economics. I know Tensei deals with a lot of people that have a fear of math, but he's well used to getting everyone up to speed on economics too.
Yes, so I mean, like, you don't need to be afraid about that one. If you are like not sure about the concepts, the approaches, then we are there to help you and to make sure that everybody is on the same page.
Yeah, and it's worth mentioning just before we close out, there's an awful lot of pastoral care supports across UCD and that you may need or you may not need. But if you're ever unsure, you can reach out to any of your academics, or you're very welcome to reach out to me or any of my colleagues, and we can signpost you in the right direction. I did mention at the beginning of the session that it's been recorded. So it will be available on our YouTube channel, UCD Eng Arc, in about a week's time. I will probably send it out as well. I'd also encourage you all to have a quick look at the YouTube video I sent to you yesterday, which gives a really top line understanding of this master's that you're about to embark on. And I think it'll get you really excited for this incoming September. We really look forward to meeting you all. If you have any questions, we're available throughout the summer. Other than that, we'll be in contact with you around registration, which will be kind of from 17th of August onwards. And then we will welcome you to campus officially in September. So I'd like to take the opportunity to thank in particular Hannah. We always love when our students come back to us and let us know how they've got on. And also to our academics today, Cara, Luke and Tensei, and for all of you for giving up your time to join us. Wishing you all well and see you in September. Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.